Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ranga Canvas. For the first time, we have somebody from India, and the reason to focus on India is many Indian laws are being created. The child online safety topic is really hot in India right now, and rightly so. And today we have with us a renowned lawyer, Mr. Animesh Sinha, who is also the founder of Sinha Partners, and is somebody who has been guiding us through our route. Really happy to have this conversation with Animesh. We'll dive into how things are progressing, but before we get into the details of that, Animesh, why don't you tell us something about yourself, your journey into the space of law, and your approach towards child online safety?
Hi, Amitabh. Thank you so much for having me on Ranga Canvas. And this is such an exciting topic. I'm so happy to be here. Let me introduce my firm first. My firm is Animesh Sinha and Partners. We have 5 core specialties. We deal with technology, insurance, energy, infrastructure, and general civil litigation. As dispute resolution specialists, our job is to ensure that our clients are away from courts. So our entire strategy is to ensure that if we can keep our core clients away from courts, that's the best thing to do. But if in case it's unavoidable and our clients do land up in court, then our job is to design the most efficient strategy and provide them with the most comprehensive legal defense that we can provide them. As far as I'm concerned, I am a litigator, I'm a managing partner, I'm an enthusiastic teacher, and an untiring taskmaster. My journey is no different from the journey of any other middle-class kid. I have grown with the same parental push for excellence, and that has been hard at times. And at some level, we are still figuring out as to how useful it was, and you know, in what ways has it damaged us, and in what ways it has built us. My journey into law is accidental. I don't think I chose to come into law as a matter of design. I was very keen with debating and with current affairs, and my father pushed me towards law. That's how I've come into law. And I've been a very excited lawyer thereon. And we are very excited about technology, because this is just not about technology which is developing. This is about issues of technology and how society is dealing with it, and how courts and laws and policies are going to respond to it. So I'm very excited to be here to discuss this fantastic topic with you.
Superb. I think that's something we see common across India. A lot of us is because of our parents. And as I know, you're also a young parent. So it becomes very personal to all of us. Now, looking from a legal perspective, what do you see are the 3, so to say, priorities that you would say are there when it comes to child online safety and India?
I think the 3 challenges would be these. First is age identification. We are a very diverse country. We are a country which has many institutions which are mapping age. And simply identifying age offline has been a challenge in India. Earlier, we were mapping age largely to be able to hand out ration cards and voter IDs. And some of these functions were very basic. Today, when we are talking about age identification, we are talking about age identification in terms of modeling law on it, in terms of protecting people of a particular age group, in terms of identifying what are the dangers for different age groups. And therefore, I think the first major challenge is age identification. We are struggling with it offline, but we must have a robust system online. That, I think, is the first fundamental towards moving towards child online safety. The second issue, I think, is how are we going to regulate access to child beneficial content? Because a lot is talked about how are we going to remove access and not provide access and just completely close out content. What in case we can go to the root of the matter and ensure some kind of content is not produced in the first place? And I think this is leading to a lot of confusion, and this will lead to a lot of confusion. I don't think any legal system or legal regime can respond to this. Therefore, we must have a very matured system, which is a system of a balance, where we are trying to regulate access to child beneficial content. And this brings me to the third point. The third point is that we must have a functioning system. What do I mean by a functioning system? Borrowing from the earlier point I said, while we must regulate access to content, we cannot stifle content itself. I think earlier when we were talking about regulating content, when content became easy to print and easy to put in books and circulate, we've seen that the more and more we try to block out content, the more and more content has a way of finding its way out. And where we are talking about, when we are talking about child online safety, children are, as it is, very curious. I see my 5-year-old, and I have got other kids in the family who are around 1. They are far more curious than I was when I was 10 years old. Therefore, it's very important that we have a very nimble system which identifies the issues and fixes them. And lastly, we must legislate laws which must deter crime, which must prevent crime, and which must, in a timely manner, punish crime. These are very important issues. Therefore, if I were to summarize the 3 main issues on child online safety today in India, one would be age identification. Second would be regulating access to child beneficial content. And third, to design a system which is nimble and functioning and efficient.
Thank you. That gives us quite a comprehensive overview of where we stand as a country. Now, I come from the field, and we have registered many FIRs and been to court. And as a lawyer, I would really like to know from your perspective that what do you think is the awareness levels when it comes to the cyber laws in the India, especially amongst the lawyers in the lower courts, because a majority of cases start over there. And what do you think? Where are we when it comes to that?
I think the awareness curve is certainly not steep, but it's not tardy either. You see, in many ways, lawyers are a product of the society. And if society is facing more and more issues which are around tech, which are issues around cyber crimes, other cyber laws, lawyers will learn of it. They will try to learn about it, and they will try to employ whatever is in the laws and the systems to provide some kind of solution. Otherwise, also post-pandemic, lawyers have started using legal tech more than they have ever used before in India. Pandemic forced us to go online. A lot of courts are still hybrid. And therefore, a lot of lawyers who were initially hesitant with technology, either in terms of being able to buy the technology itself. And when we talk of technology, we are a very diverse country. Some lawyers had issues which were as basic as getting access to a mobile device which had camera on it. How do you make an online presentation in court? How do you sign in? We do not have a network everywhere for you to be able to sign it. So lawyers have grappled with different issues. And therefore, I say that while the learning curve is not steep, it's not tardy either. And you're absolutely right, because a lot of the issues that come in with cyber crimes are issues which are on the original side. So you're looking at filing FIRs, you're looking at filing cases in the lower courts, where generally our lawyers are not supposed to be, as smart as some appellate lawyers are, who've maybe studied from more fancier law schools or who've gone out and studied in fancier programs abroad. And not only vis-a-vis cyber laws, but are more aware of more cutting tech laws which are dealing with issues which are of more cutting tech, for example, energy, or for example, new financial instruments. Largely, we see that lawyers who are in lower courts don't have the exposure to something like this. And that is coming out to be a challenge, certainly, when we are dealing with cyber laws. Even 5-7 years earlier, under the IT Act, some provisions are providing for civil remedies, some provisions provide for criminal action. Therefore, when you go to courts to file FIRs, the lawyers and the police have no idea whether the dispute is civil or criminal. And sometimes something like this is extremely basic. But I think as more and more FIRs started getting filed all over the countries, lawyers also started learning. They started learning both the nuances as well as, how to misuse the law. Sometimes, a lot of it is done to settle personal scores. And we saw a lot of unscrupulous FIRs and a lot of unscrupulous litigations being filed. We often hear it in news where we are getting injunctions and stay orders for foreign movies and foreign games. There are orders on celebrities who are not in India. And a lot of this is responding from that ignorance. And therefore, while the curve of legal awareness is not very steep, but I think we are getting there.
Yeah, I remember some of those cases working with big tech companies. We do hear about them from time to time. Now, from the big tech and then from the lawyers coming to the Indian startup ecosystem, where it's growing rapidly. There is innovation happening. There is disruption happening. But for the founders, how do we, especially for the ed tech and the gaming world, how do you see they should go about implementing child online safety on their platform, especially from a legal perspective? Because GDPR, COPA, these are serious laws abroad. But what would be your advice towards founders in India when it comes to child online safety?
I think my advice would be hard hitting, and that would be no cost cutting. I think most startups and founders and gamers, uh, they are employing most of their energy in making the business work, in getting their funding, in getting uh, more access to customers and consumers. And costing is a major issue. And that is why I think my advice has to be very hard hitting to say no cost cutting. You must get audit of your business done, of your game done, whether it is in terms of policy and community guidelines, whether it is audit in terms of legal compliances. And I'm saying this more because it's an enabler and not necessarily it is something which is going to bring you to trouble. You mentioned the COPA, you mentioned a lot of the regulations that are coming up in more developed jurisdictions. But even in India, we deal with child abuse, we deal with cyberbullying, all of these issues very strictly. Whatever laws we have are very strict. The government has time and again shown that they are very strict about the implementation of these laws. The courts have been very, very strict about this all throughout, and I don't see any let up. Even as stakeholders, we are a very diverse country, we are a very young country, and we are very, very concerned about how our children are going to get access of content which could possibly harm them. And as games are getting developed, as these games can be played by kids who are sometimes as young as 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. And therefore, if you look at it from the side of the industry for the gamers, it is a challenge to build the game and get the consumer and launch it and get the money. But one case where something goes wrong is going to bring everything to a naught. And therefore, it's extremely important that you get legal audit done, that you get your community guidelines in order, that you get your safety audits done. If you have to hire experts to get this done, it must be done at 3 stages. It must be done at the beginning stage. It must be done at the long stage that you have to maintain it while your business runs. And if any shit hits the roof, if there is any trouble, any litigation, any possible abuse that has happened, you must immediately jump into action and take steps. And therefore, my advice of getting all of this is for both the reasons. One, it could lead to a killer blow to your business. And two, generally as stakeholders in child online safety, I think positively we must be a part of this ecosystem where child online safety is taken care of. We are a very young population. We are still grappling with many issues. And therefore, it's very important that we deal with child online safety at the same level as we deal with crimes against the human body with children, as we deal with terrorist-related laws. That's how serious I think this is.
Yeah, definitely. I totally echo it. Across the globe, safety by design is something which is being promoted. Universities are pushing for it. So even the techies need to understand it. And I'm a founder myself. And the last thing you ever want to do in the spirit of things is ever hurt somebody who's using your product. I mean, nobody gets out there to do it, but just like physical safety, if you do not have the fire extinguisher, if you don't have the brakes in the car, if you don't wear the helmet, things can go wrong. So child online safety is superbly essential, both from business as well as personal perspective. So going forward, India is at a very interesting stage. In fact, even globally, the Congress is constantly talking about it in the United States. UK has come up with this online safety bill. Where do you see, and how do you, let's say, predict where are we going? Like, what does the Indian ecosystem legally look like when it comes to child online safety in your perspective?
I think I'm very bullish about it. I think we are headed in the right direction. There's a lot of conversation that is happening, and conversation is very important before we legislate anything, before we make any policy. And the fact that there are organizations like Ranga and so many other organizations which is stimulating this conversation, I think that itself makes me be very bullish that things are in the right direction. I think this is something which the parliament, the government, the courts, the entire ecosystem is very strict about. It is something where I don't think we need to bring legal awareness as to what are the possible damages that can be. So in that sense, I take a lot of heart from the fact that people are taking this seriously. It is not supposed to be a byproduct of business. At many levels, this is primary. In terms of where we are going to reach, I think in India, we respond a lot to what happens with more developed jurisdictions. And that's not a bad thing, because developed jurisdictions have a lot more capacity of research and survey. And we see that a lot of laws are getting developed in the US and in the UK. And a lot of these games and apps and different technologies which are going to deal with child online safety are going to be cross-jurisdictional. I could be making a game in Bangalore, and somebody could be playing with that game in Africa, somebody could be playing with that game in the US. And the exposure to law is extremely wide. And therefore, legal policy and laws need to be designed universally. So it's a very good thing that we are going to react to a lot of laws that are getting developed outside. And because we are having a very good ecosystem of having a good conversation about it, I think with all of these inputs, we are headed into a direction of a more stable policy and more certain laws. I must also give a pat in the back, I'm sorry. I must also give a pat in the back to the laws that exist today. So India is not a country which is functioning in the vacuum about child online safety. You see the IT Act, the POSCO, the government is coming out with different regulations on ethics codes, on gaming, the penal code itself, our contract laws. So the fundamentals are already in place. So what we are going to create is not entirely new, but it is going to be an extension of a lot of principles which already exist. And I say this because for any system, there has to be a sync between its executing mechanism and its legislating mechanism. And I see as Parliament is going to make these laws, and we are going to get more subordinate laws coming out about it, I think the executive is not going to be taken by surprise by a new paradigm and framework. I think the paradigm and framework is the same. Of course, a lot more has to be done to make it more robust. Therefore, when I say I'm bullish not only because there's a conversation for new laws to come. I'm also bullish because our fundamentals are in order.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think I have, because of the Digital India Act, I've been having lots of these conversations for the past 1 month. And I can say, starting from the ministry, startups, think tanks, big tech. Number one, everyone is open to talk about it, which is already a really big win, that they are opening doors, they are having conversations. Number two, we are very positive about where we want to go with this. It's a very participatory process, and hats off to the ministry. There's always going to be criticism. All of us will never be happy. Coming from the civil society, we know it. But the fact that everybody's talking is a great sign. So yeah. Thanks very much. Any other thoughts that pop out of your mind? We can totally go off script. Some closing words for the audience, the viewers. How can folks reach out to you? Especially I know startup founders. Once they watch it, they're like, okay, I need to talk to this guy. So if you're providing any services like that, let us know. Um,
I think we are easy to reach. We are on Google. You can Google us. You'll find some way of finding us. Uh, because of BCI regulations, we cannot openly advertise, and that's not what we intend to do either. But if you are a startup, if you are a techie, you know far more than me how to get in touch with me. My name is Animesh Sinha. My firm is Animesh Sinha and Partners. I think that's enough. In terms of a closing statement, I mean, thank you so much for indulging me to say that. And uh, I think in a closing statement, I'm very excited about what's happening here. Uh, I see that there is a strong impetus to gaming in India. Uh, we've always had a very strong push towards engineering growing up, and now a lot of entrepreneurial ventures have opened up. Today, a coder does not necessarily need to work with big tech or some similar tech which is already established. A game is being developed by somebody who is in just school right now. Kids who are not even professionally learning how to code, and therefore I'm very excited about what is going to come out. There is so much of creativity, and I think that's going to bring so much of opportunity for us. I'm also very excited and happy to see what Ranga is doing and what similar organizations are doing in terms of being able to guide this wide range of people who are trying to get into this business. And this gives me a lot of heart. Sometimes, as lawyers, by the time some dispute reaches our table, it's already too late. And sometimes it's rather somber, and sometimes it's very sad also to see what has already transpired. I'm very excited to see that there is some kind of insulation between the young kid who's gaming in school and maybe us and the courts. There is so much conversation and so much policy being developed, and so many organizations who have taken it so seriously to work in this sector. I think I'm very excited about the entire ecosystem of creativity, of people trying to steer us in the ethical and the right direction, as well as the institutions in terms of the parliament and the government and the courts are also taking this issue seriously.
It is a great space. We are holding consultations about the child online safety across the country. We already have over 100 organizations which want to participate, so that's a great start for everybody watching Ranga Canvas. The idea is simple: to get inputs from experts on child online safety, to push the conversation. We did a series of global experts. Now we are looking at home, looking into Indian experts and practitioners. There'll be many, many more joining in. Once again, thanks a lot, Animesh. I know we'll be in touch for sure. But yeah, let's push the conversation forward. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Amita. My pleasure entirely.